Late News with Sandra Sully.
Tonight, separate lives. Australia's miracle twins continue to astound doctors. Anger on the streets as the big banks shut down more suburban branches. And bowled over, injury sideline spin king Shane Warne. Good evening. First tonight, medical experts are still astounded by Brisbane Siamese twins. They're making a remarkable recovery out of intensive care and feeding just days after the groundbreaking surgery that separated them.
That they were born alive was a medical miracle. 6-month-old Monique and Taylor Armstrong are continuing to astound the medical fraternity. Less than 3 days after being surgically separated, the tiny girls are out of intensive care and recovering in a general ward at Brisbane's Royal Children's Hospital.
The arterial and venous lines and those sort of things have been removed, so they're starting to look a bit more normal now.
Surgeons are amazed at the girls' rapid progress. Monique and Taylor both strong enough to feed from a bottle.
They've both been feeding and really progressing, I think probably would be fair to say much better than anybody anticipated.
Since the operation, the girls' young parents from Ipswich have been keeping a bedside vigil. Doctors quick to warn, though, that despite the baby's strong progress, the next 2 weeks will be critical.
It's personally very satisfying to know that this has happened in our hospital and that our hospital is a state-of-the-art hospital that is capable of performing this surgery.
Congratulations for the doctors and best wishes for the family are pouring in from across the country.
There's been lots of general phone calls and people expressing their good wishes, and there's been lots of gifts. The family could set up a teddy bear shop if they had to.
Taylor and Monique are currently in a stable condition. Lisa Goddard Rolls, 10 News.
Renewed public fury against the banks. This time the National Australia Bank is under fire, accused of deserting customers it's labelled unprofitable.
Save our banks! Save our banks!
The cry of ordinary people right around Australia as ever more branches close. But the big banks don't want to listen. This National Australia Bank in Drummoyne shutting shop today because it doesn't make enough profit for shareholders.
Today it's Drummoyne. Yesterday it was a NAB bank closure in Diamond Valley down in Victoria. But the NAB has closed close to 100 branches over the last 12 months.
The banks call these people low-value customers. With mortgages paid off, they have savings accounts, perhaps a credit card.
I am angry, but what can I do?
Travel to the next suburb, says the National.
They can make all these profits and sacrifice jobs and not worry about the public.
If they're only interested in their shareholders, they have absolutely no duty to society, and as I said, they've abandoned the frail, the elderly and the aged.
Labor has pledged to call the banks to account if it wins power, forcing the focus back on customers.
They've been the bread and butter for these banks over many decades in communities. They deserve some consideration.
The National Australia Bank chose not to comment on camera. Just a week ago it announced more fee increases, with yet another 100 branches to be lost over the next year. As more branches close, the banks continue to make big profits. The National Australia made $2.8 billion last year, and it's hoping to make even more when the latest results are announced next week. John Hill, 10 News.
Australia's largest health fund is being taken to court over an ad campaign to get people to sign up before July the 1st. Medibank Private is accused of false and deceptive advertising by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. It's alleged the fund wrongly claimed there would be no rate increase this year for its Package Plus, and offers to waive waiting periods were misleading.
To firstly stop wrongful conduct, we want them to give refunds to any consumers who were misled.
A number of other funds are also under investigation. Australia spin wizard Shane Warne is out of the game until Christmas. Doctors have confirmed he has badly fractured the finger he uses for his deadly spin, and he's not likely to take the field again before the international test on Boxing Day.
This was the moment that Shane Warne dreaded, breaking his spinning finger.
It was just something, one of those things that just happened, I suppose. It's hazards of cricket.
It continues a miserable run for Warne. Stripped of the vice-captaincy earlier this year after a phone sex scandal in England and a horror stretch of injuries which has seen his shoulder reconstructed and knee surgery last month. Another appointment with the surgeon will be necessary to repair the top knuckle on his shattered ring finger.
It's, in civil terms, it's not a bad fracture. The problem is that it's in Shane's spinning finger and he's a professional cricketer.
Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes it's pretty hard to find out what that reason is.
The best case scenario now for Australia's leading wicket taker, a return for the 4th test at the MCG on Boxing Day.
The Boxing Day test match would be the return, hopefully, but we'll just have to wait and see.
If he comes back from this a better bowler, then it's a great credit to him, so it's a real challenge for him now.
The injury has opened the door for Stuart McGill to get back in the test team for the Windies tour starting on November 23rd in Brisbane. Michael Reid, 10 News.
Australia has been hailed for staging the best Olympic Games ever. Now the accolades are flowing for the Paralympics that have also seen our athletes reap a record medal haul. Australians have now amassed an incredible 123 medals at the Paralympics, including 50 golds. Great Britain is second on the medal tally with a total of 107, followed by Spain with 94, America 93, China 63. And sports tonight will have all the highlights of today's action right after this bulletin. But stay with us, still ahead in tonight's late news. What's been killing millions of mutton birds around Australia? Also breathing easy, technology making medicine easier to swallow. And PlayStation pandemonium as the latest games craze hits the shelves. You're watching 10's Late News. In Victoria, protesters are to be compensated for injuries sustained in a police baton charge during a demonstration 7 years ago. But they claim police attitudes have changed little.
Hands raised in victory outside a college they couldn't save, but with a message they've waited 7 years to deliver.
Be very, very careful about using batons again.
And while the mood was a world away from December 1993, the memories remain.
And I would never have believed, I still find it difficult to believe that it happened in this country.
Mrs. Sievers and David Sheridan are two of the 30 claimants who have reached an out-of-court settlement with the Victoria Police Force, a confidential agreement thought to total around $300,000.
I think it's a vindication of our position from the start that it was a non-violent protest and also that the police had no right to use force.
Disciplinary charges against 8 officers involved in the baton charge have since been dropped. The Force issued a written statement late this afternoon stating its out-of-court settlement with protesters was in no way an admission its officers acted unlawfully. Darren Lunny, 10 News.
Storms, not starvation, or rather storms and starvation, not an oil spill, are now blamed for the deaths of millions of mutton birds washed up on Australia's beaches this month. 12 carcasses have been examined by vets in Adelaide, who now believe the birds were blown away from their usual feeding grounds by a severe storm in the Pacific Ocean. More than 1 million of them died during their annual migration from the Northern Hemisphere. Australian researchers are refining inkjet printer technology to make it easier to take your medication. They say it'll take the agony out of the most painful injections.
It's the size of a lipstick and is said to revolutionise the way we take medicine.
This is the world's first digital microdroplet inhaler for delivering drugs to the deep lung.
Inside this prototype is the technology used in inkjet printers. A cartridge form of the prescribed drug is vaporised so the tiny droplets can be inhaled.
At the 3 micron size, it goes all the way through the lungs, right down to the very bottom in the air sacs, where it crosses into the bloodstream.
And that's good news for those who need regular injections of drugs, including insulin for diabetics, fertility drugs for women, human growth hormones for children, and morphine for cancer patients.
People can medicate when they feel the pain coming on, which in cancer patients who need morphine to control their pain, this becomes very important. They can self-medicate as they go through the day.
While the drug inhaler will be used for predominantly pharmaceutical purposes, the developers say it may also help smokers quit by delivering controlled amounts of nicotine. Swinburne University experts helped develop the inhaler, complete with a computer chip which stores data for doctors. The reusable inhaler should be available in 4 to 5 years at around $30. Mignon Henny, 10 News.
Australian scientists believe they have found a real way to combat the greenhouse effect. They're working to perfect a laser they say will fuel industry more efficiently.
Every day, industrial byproducts like carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxide pollute our atmosphere. They create blankets of choking smog and put more pressure on our fragile ozone layer. But now this laser could reduce the problem. Adelaide University is trialling technology to help gas-fired machinery run more efficiently.
If a flame is too hot, then it's producing too much nitrogen oxides, and therefore too much emissions.
The idea is to get the laser right into the heart of the flame. Data is sent back to a computer which paints a picture of how efficiently the flame is burning. If it isn't burning efficiently, the flame can be altered.
By being more efficient, they produce less greenhouse gases.
Which means a huge saving in fuel bills.
They can increase output, reduce fuel consumption, it can save them 5%, say, in their fuel bill. It may then translate into a 5% increase in production, so it can have a huge impact on their bottom line.
Trials will continue here for at least the next 2 years. The university then plans to build a portable laser machine that can be used at industrial sites around the world. The technology will never allow industry to remove all pollutants, but scientists say it will lessen the amount of gases contaminating our atmosphere. Melody Horrell, 10 News.
Still ahead in tonight's late news, renewed anger in Russia over the Kursk submarine debacle. Another ambitious plan to land on Mars. And in sports tonight, Leighton Hewitt through to the quarterfinals of the Swiss Indoor Championships. You're watching the late news. Prime Minister John Howard has set aside domestic problems to tackle diplomacy in the South Pacific. He's in the tiny island nation of Kiribati for a summit considered crucial following recent upheavals in the region.
One of the most remote places on Earth provided a nice change for John Howard, being greeted by smiling faces and flowers rather than peppered with questions about phone cards.
Very nice to be in your country. Welcome. Thank you very much.
The Coral Atoll is home to the South Pacific Forum for the next 4 days, a particularly crucial time after the failed coup in Fiji and civil war in the Solomons.
There is a general view amongst leaders that we should reinforce our commitment to democratic processes, to make it plain that military coups are not the Pacific way.
But there will be reminders, including a difficult meeting with Fiji's new Prime Minister, undemocratically appointed after the coup, and hints of trouble to come, a delegation of leaders wanting independence for West Papua, an Indonesian province.
There should be a lot of sympathy in terms of the cultural component of the issue.
If West Papua were to try to separate from Indonesia, there would be a bloodbath. Believe me, it would be a bloodbath.
Alarm bells are also ringing over environmental issues, a Greenpeace report predicting widespread destruction of coral reefs over the next 20 years.
We must take steps to address the basic problem here, and that is the rate at which the planet appears to be warming.
Sue Fitzpatrick, 10 News.
A new wave of grief and rage in Russia after the release of the tragic message from beyond the watery grave of the nuclear submarine Kursk. The handwritten note reveals more than 20 sailors survived 2 huge explosions, only to suffer a slow, agonizing death.
27-year-old Dmitry Kolesnikov was a proud submariner following his father into the Navy. Here on home video shot only a few months ago, he says it's an honour to be serving here, and it's here on board the Kursk he died. His last message, retrieved by divers, was a note, scribbled as the sub blasted open, filled with icy water. Most of his 117 shipmates already dead. There are 23 here, he wrote. None of us have been able to get out. Dmitry and the other survivors had scrambled to the back of the crippled Kursk as it plunged 108 metres below the surface of the Barents Sea. They desperately tried to force an escape hatch open, but it wouldn't budge. At that point, the note ends. Dmitry saying, "I'm writing blind." He and his mates then waited in darkness for a rescue that never came. His widow, Irina, says when her husband of only a few months left her for the last time, he had had a premonition of death and had given her his identity tags.
I love him very much. I want to see him, and I want to read his letter.
4 bodies have been removed from the Kursk so far. Russia now holding its breath to see if the wreck yields more bodies More about their final hours and more contradictions with the official version of the tragedy. Andrew Bell, 10 News.
Ambitious plans to kickstart NASA's ailing Mars Explorer program. After last year's loss of 2 Red Planet probes, the American Space Agency is linking up with the French. They will send 8 or more probes to Mars over the next 2 decades to search for evidence of water or life. The first mission that can return samples of Martian soil or rock could be launched as soon as 2011. The wait is finally over for hordes of computer games fans, with the arrival of Sony's PlayStation 2. But supply isn't expected to meet demand amid rumours it's a publicity stunt to increase the hype.
I got exactly 27 games, all right? If someone broke in front of someone, I have nothing to do with that. We're all grown people out here, all right?
These people lay on the cold footpath all night in the name of fun.
Number 1!
And that's all in the name of a game.
I stood here since 9 o'clock last night. What did you do that for? Well, for the PlayStation 2, of course.
The new generation Sony PlayStation uses a supercharged graphics chip called the Emotion Engine, which pumps out up to 75 million picture elements per second.
It's an awesome system, that's all I can say.
It's a long way from the old PlayStation to the new.
Usually when it has better look, it's better.
Selling here at $600 Australian, the PS2 can also play DVD movies and music CDs. Sony hopes it will eventually become a family's key digital entertainment centre. That's if everyone can get one. The new Sony PlayStation is available in Australia from November 30. Michelle Stone in the United States, 10 News.
Checking finance news now, and the Australian share market has finished the week higher. The benchmark All Ordinaries Index climbing 5 points. Of our leading stocks, News Corp regained 41 cents, Telstra lost 15, while BHP added 20. A bad day for the banks, the Commonwealth losing 41 cents, ANZ 34, Westpac falling 14. The Australian dollar is still languishing just over 52 American cents, over 36 1/3 pence, almost 56.5 yen, and 62.5 euro cents. Gold is trading at $266 even US an ounce. In London, the FTSE is higher in morning trade. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is weaker. Tokyo's Nikkei also down. A high-class Sydney escort agency is looking to enhance its profile by sponsoring a team in next year's National Rugby League competition. But the deal is far from being put to bed.
Hookers are nothing new to rugby league, but now the game's being offered a sponsorship deal that would titillate any football club accountant. The leading Miss Fleiss escort agency wants to sponsor an NRL club to the tune of $300,000 a season.
$300,000 does go a long way, especially when clubs are looking for a bit of money from here and there for a bit of sponsorship.
Sex sponsorship of sport has been successfully tried before. In the early 90s, a Melbourne brothel jumped into bed with a local football side, figuratively speaking. Another boudoir backed a bawdy contender at Bathurst. But it's an avenue some NRL clubs would rather not explore.
I don't think the Sharks would be interested, and I respectfully say that I appreciate the offer, but we won't be pursuing it any further.
The escort agency says its lucrative offer has aroused interest from 3 rugby league clubs. But for the moment, like its clients, they'll remain anonymous. But the NRL hasn't warmed to the idea. Like the AFL before it, the league wants no part in promoting prostitution.
Quite simply, it won't happen. That's not the sort of fit that we see for the NRL.
I guess the first thing that they think of is sex, maybe, but our company is a bit more than that.
The escort agency hopes the league will have a change of heart. In the meantime, it's considering sponsoring other sports like motor racing. Sean Fewings, 10 News.
I'll have the all-important weekend weather forecast next, then Matthew White will have all the real sport in the Friday night edition of Sports Tonight.
Thank you, Sandra. Tonight, the Australian women basketballers go for gold at the Paralympics. Also, the Cox Plate, and the Yankees claim their 3rd straight World Series.
To the national weather now, and the satellite photograph shows a massive cloud over the eastern parts of WA, some patchy cover around Western Queensland, and a band of frontal cloud across the southeast. To the synoptic chart, and a high-pressure system should be centred to the south of Adelaide tomorrow, reaching across much of southeastern and central Australia, while that low in the southern Tasman should continue to dominate conditions in both the west and north of the continent. So tomorrow, mostly fine conditions forecast for Cairns, a late shower or thunderstorm around Townsville, fine for Brisbane, chance of a shower in Sydney. Should be fine in Canberra tomorrow, showers clearing from Melbourne and Hobart, mostly sunny for Adelaide, fine in Perth, late storms for Darwin, and mostly sunny across the Red Centre. Finally tonight, evidence Halloween is hauntingly close. Sydney's 3-day Halloween festival is off to a spooky start, with all the fun of the fair to entertain kids of all ages. All money raised from the jack-o'-lantern carving stations goes to the Humour Foundation, which operates the Clown Doctor program in children's hospitals in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. There will be no dodging the big day when it rolls around to frighten us all on Tuesday. That's all from the Lake News team for this Friday, the 27th of October. Stick around now, though, for Sports Tonight with Matthew White. I better wrap it up, I think. I'm Sandra Sully. See you Monday. Have a great weekend. Good night.